See, I was just going to chalk up Bernie Sanders' comments on the flagrant pod with Andrew Schultz and them as just a white man who wants to win an election. But I think it's worth some deep dive. And if you don't know what he's talking about, let me play that for you right here.
2016 with this Bernie Bros movement where your followers are seeing they have a racism problem, a misogyny problem. Do you think that's a super PAC thing behind that?
That was the Democratic establishment.
So I'm talking about that clip. Now, there's more to it. Bernie gets into some stuff about identity politics. And if Andrew Schultz, if you know Andrew Schultz, he's really good at sort of add a little fuel to the fire. So here's how I see it, okay? I've already told you the easy way out is white man wants to win an election. But the thing is, Bernie's 80 plus or whatever. Wait, 2028 is when you want to run. What do you really know? So maybe it's not that simple, right? One of my fundamental rules in life is that everyone has a dark side. That's like one of the things that I like. It's like psychology stuff. Everybody has a dark side, right? And we all have weaknesses. We all have flaws. But I really try to approach life that way. So even people that I like, that I love, or whatever, I always say, what's your weakness, right? So in that first clip that I showed y'all, and go watch the full thing because I want you to understand the full concept I'm talking about. The first thing is he's dismissive about a real issue that did happen during during part of his campaign. And then he deflects. I have a problem with that. That's the very first thing, right? And it's like, well, what's your dark side? Is your dark side you just think you're a know-it-all? Do you think you understand race relations better than most of us because you're in your 80s, because you marched with that? Like, what is that, right? Or is it driven by the disdain you do have for the Democratic establishment? So for me, it's like, hey, Bernie, you have to be able to see past that and understand you're talking about a real issue here. There was a real settlement and a non-disclosure agreement signed with an African-American woman who said, black people were treated differently during your campaign. That's a real conversation rather than just dismissing and calling it the Democratic establishment. So that's moved that outside. It seems like Bernie has an accountability problem, at least in this avenue. Yes, me and Bernie agree with class inequality, but that's something we can admit. The next thing, though, I think is where people have a lot of issues with. Well, they kind of connect because it's being dismissive again, which is Andrew Schultz kind of latches onto him. Go watch the full clip. And kind of links Bernie with this thing where he says, hey, and, in the last election, the Democrats largely avoided, podcasts and the podcast bros, where it's like, say what you want to say. We're talking about right-wing grifters. Come on, say it. Extreme right-wing, about podcasts that create room for these extreme right-wing people, right? Say it. And Bernie, either on purpose, and that's why I said maybe it's just a white man that wants to win an election, leans into it, and he knows what audience he's going to welcome. He knows what audience, which is that audience that tells you, the OGs of them, they say, I don't see color. That's a red flag for me. Anybody telling me you don't see color. What color? Go find your car then. How you going to know it's your car if you don't see color? Shut up. Yeah, I'm taking you literal. I don't see color. I see you. I know exactly what you is. Right? So that's the thing. He lets Andrew Schultz latch it onto him when in reality, I think the way to answer that question, because the way Bernie did it was says, oh, there's this thing in identity politics, which is true. Like, it's just a thing we can talk about. But would Bernie want that to be something that he's known for too? Like, oh, Bernie, you're white, so I guess that's why you win. No, he should have been able to have that conversation and tell, Andrew Schultz, like, yeah, do I think that we should be avoiding certain podcasts and things like that? No. Do I think there are some times where, certain podcasts, he doesn't have to admit this, Andrew Schultz, create room for a little bit of hatred and things like that? Yes. And it doesn't help my agenda of class equality. You see what I'm saying? It's always, the onus is always placed on the minority groups, right? As the one causing the disruption when equality is being asked for. And Bernie, instead of trying to do the difficult work there and talking about that, right, he puts the onus on the minority group in such a way as though the minority groups are the ones stopping his goal for class equality. You know what I'm saying? So the way now we could deep dive on this a lot more. But in order not to drive myself crazy, I like to just chalk some certain things up when I'm not making videos with y'all. I just say, hey, yeah, that's the white man trying to win an election. I guess Bernie think he gonna run in 2028. No funny shit. Because when you and then also you gotta know who you talking to. Bernie act like he don't know who he's talking to. And maybe that's why I said everybody has a dark side. Maybe Bernie knows exactly who he was talking to. And he knows exactly who those type of people that listen to Andrew Schultz's podcast is. And he knows exactly what they want to hear. The problem is you did it at the expense of minority groups. So hopefully you can live with that. I hope this explains this well. Let me have any questions. Let me know.